All right, so you're considering making that move to Tampa, Florida, and one of the things that is on your mind is what is up with hurricanes? What do I need to do? How concerned do I genuinely need to be if I'm going to relocate from somewhere who has never experienced some type of weather like that before? And the reason I wanted to get to this today with you guys is because I get asked this question all the time. Every time one of you reaches out to me, whether it's from email, text message, phone calls, DMs, or Zoom calls, it's one of the first questions that pop up. And I know when my wife and I and our family made that relocation jump too, we also were extremely concerned and anxious just because we didn't know how to prepare or what to expect. So in today's episode, we are going to cover all things hurricane because guess what? It's early May, hurricane season hasn't even started, and Mother Nature looked at Florida and said, guess what? Hold my beer. If this is your first time to the channel, we make videos that are all things Tampa Bay. What it's like to live here, what it's like to play here, the food, the dining, the outdoors, the beaches, and the sunshine. My name is Juan Alcala. I'm a real estate professional and a team leader here in the Tampa Bay area, and we help people just like you move, sell, relocate, and invest in the Tampa Bay real estate. But we talk about all things Tampa Bay, just like the video that we're gonna cover today. So if this is your first time to the channel and you have any questions or comments, or I make a mistake, please feel free to put that comment below. We 100% welcome any conversations that stir up from here. And hey, I wanna know, what are your concerns? What are your fears? Because we're gonna share a lot of information with you today to help you be ready. So if you're gonna make that jump relocation and you don't know what to do, by the end of this video, you are definitely gonna have that covered. And we're gonna get into that right now. All right, like I said, it is mid-May here, 2022, and Mother Nature has decided that she's gonna kick off the season a little bit early. Now, while we don't have a hurricane currently in the Atlantic Ocean, they are already tracking a pretty good-sized storm off the coast of Africa, which is where they tend to originate, and they've got their eyeballs on it, and they think this thing has the potential to turn into a tropical storm, which is what leads to a hurricane eventually. Now, I wanted to share this video with you guys because I had so many questions. My wife and I, when Kate and I sat down and started to look at things, one of the things that we actually did is we looked at how frequently hurricanes came to the Tampa Bay area. I went and I searched, I Googled it, and of course it's on every insurance website you could ever think of in Florida. And what we found was when we were originally thinking of moving to the East Coast, and I'll tell you why. My father-in-law lives in Jensen Beach, Florida, has lived all along the Atlantic coast from Fort Lauderdale all the way up. I think he's moved like 3 or 4 times and has settled in Jensen Beach and been there for quite some time. We love that area and we really thought that we would be there. And one of the things that changed our mind early was the beaches. And my wife and I came to the west coast of Florida on a whim during a work vacation / work trip. And we just fell in love with the white sandy beaches, the calmness of the Gulf Coast versus the Atlantic, and just absolutely fell in love with it. But when we started doing our real homework, like, hey, we're going to do this. What is this going to look like? We had the questions about the big 3, right? The big 3 are these, right? Hurricanes, right? Alligators and sharks. The things that you are most likely never to be hurt by. I have way more risk by getting in my car and just driving to 7-Eleven of being ran into. But those things were top of mind because, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen way too many films that revolve around terrible weather destroying the earth. I grew up, I'm 46 years old. Jaws was a fixture when I was, this big. I should have never seen that movie when I was 6 years old. But I'm a child of the 80s, man. That's what you do, right? You watch things you weren't supposed to watch. So of course that was going on. And then the alligator thing, I've seen way too many Florida memes before we made that jump. And man, we had these questions. But when we started doing the homework on hurricanes specifically, because that's something you really don't know, right? I had no idea. And I had watched my father-in-law basically say, we're never leaving. And they've lived through some pretty big hurricanes over on the East Coast there. And one of the things we saw in that insurance document is, sure enough, the East Coast gets hit way more frequently than central West Coast Florida. And when I went and did the homework, what I discovered is right before we moved, it had been almost 100 years since a hurricane had directly impacted Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, right? Because when you think about it, Florida's this peninsula that comes off the bottom of the United States, and essentially it's in the ocean. Don't ever lose sight of that, y'all, right? Florida is in the ocean. But that Atlantic current comes around the bottom and then comes out and follows up and then goes into the panhandle and goes over to Texas. Well, what typically happens, and again, I am not a meteorologist and don't take the meteorologist advice from me, but what I've seen happen, right? So this is my perspective of what I've seen is the hurricanes will either come up the Atlantic side, and you see a lot of that, or they'll come in between the islands. And a lot of the times Jamaica and Bahamas, those poor people have been just ravaged by hurricanes over the year. Puerto Rico, I mean, my heart goes out to those families, right? But it kind of comes in between Key West, and then as it comes in, it either goes towards Texas or it tends to go more towards the panhandle area, right? So like Destin, Tallahassee, like Pensacola, those areas have had a lot of strikes. And listen, I you don't ever want to see that type of devastation hit your state, but I've just been fascinated. And when you look at data, I try to be a logical person, even though that's an emotional question, right? But I looked at it, and what I saw was like, it does not happen here nearly as frequently as it happens everywhere else. Is the potential for it to happen at any time? Yes. I am not somebody who looks Mother Nature in the face and says, I'd like to test you, because I'm really not interested in that. However, I could see it, right? And the insurance rates proved it. And, there are a lot of factors that went into that. So first things first is, you guys know, I always try to link the articles of anything that we bring to light here in the description. So feel free to check those out. And what I want to know is, what are your questions specifically about hurricanes? Okay, what are your fears about making that relocation? And I would be more than happy to guide you to information. Again, we're going to link that below, but I'd love to hear this. And then today, what I really want to do is talk about how to be prepared, because at the end of the day, y'all, I'm not trying to play Russian roulette here. I'm very fortunate in the way that I love real estate, right? And while that is geographically specific, right? If you're coming and we need to go look at houses, then I've got to be here. But typically what happens during a hurricane or the threat of a hurricane, there's not a whole lot of that going on. The storms get pretty gnarly in terms of rains and winds, and nobody's out home shopping. So my wife and I and our family have the ability to pack up and leave. And here's one of the things that gave us a lot of solitude. Obviously, we had the ability to talk to my father-in-law about his experiences with hurricanes, number one. And the first thing that he helped us put to rest was the fact that it takes time, right? There has never been that I have found, and if you found this article, put it up there, where a hurricane magically popped up directly off the coast of Florida and had massive devastation. They don't typically work that way. What happens is they form off the coast of Africa. They build power and energy as they come across, and they start coming into warmer waters, into the Caribbean, and then they make their way into Florida. We get a lot of notice, sometimes 10, 12 days. Some of these move fairly quickly, some of them move really slow. And what we did when we decided we were going to move to Florida, we just made the decision very early that if we believed that the storm, based upon information that we were being given from the meteorologist, was a storm that we didn't want to play with, right? And I'm going to get into the little details of that in a minute, but I'm not here to test fate. We would just pack up our family and we would drive to Georgia. We would go to the mountains. We would stay in a hotel. We didn't need to be here to test it. We made that decision as a family, okay? And we were gonna do it early, okay? Meaning that like once this thing got strong enough, 3 days out, 4 days out, we're packing up, we're heading out, okay? And we didn't wanna play that game. And that was our decision. Now, living in Florida for 3 years, I am just completely amazed that the people that live here are so resilient. And now we're one of them, right? Where when they look at the storms, like it's the whole adage. You see these memes all the time, and I'll put one up here. But you see these memes where it's like, Florida, 55-degree weather, the world shuts down. Florida, Cat 4 hurricane, they're out on the beach in the cabanas. Like, it is almost true. Remember, jokes are only funny if they're partially true. And there is some validity to that. We decided we were not going to be that family. So that is us. 10 years down the road, we may be that family. I don't know. here's what I do know. My house is built of block. It is very strong versus what I lived in when I was back home in Detroit, which was a stick-built home, right? We had tornadoes up north and those things would tear things apart. Here, the construction of the home is so much different than what I had experienced back home in the north because it has to be able to withstand a certain amount of wind speed. So that gives you some solace. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you need to test hurricanes, keep that in mind, but what I do want to share with you is like there are things that are put in place. Florida is built for this type of weather. Now, don't test it. I'm not sitting here talking about going to Cat 4, Cat 5 playing around, but I want to give you guys just a few things. So today what I'm going to talk about really quick before we wrap this up is just the things that I believe you should have in place. And then also I'm going to give you a link to the FloiridaState.com website where they give you a whole hurricane preparedness, but I want to tell you how we prepared, right? Because one of the things you need to do is get prepared. So you can get hurricane shutters. Those are a good option. They'll either actually mount them to the outside of your home, which are a really nice option. They're not cheap, just heads up on that. Or you can have where they take corrugated steel and they put these anchors in the outside over your windows and doors, and you can slide them down and lock them on that way, which is also a really good option. And then you have the option as well as boarding them up. You will see that a lot, right? If you live out of state or you've ever seen Florida in a hurricane readiness, you'll see, you know, companies and people boarding up their houses with plywood. That is also a normal option there. But what I want to do outside of the obvious, which is, you know, bring things in from outside. Don't leave anything loose tied down outside. You know, I had a lot of conversations with people who live here, and that's the thing that gave me the most practical, right, advice was, hey, this is the things that you need to have. So I wanted to share that with you guys really quick today outside of the exterior, right? So number one, if you've got a garage, bring your cars in if that's an option for you. You want to keep them out of the way of falling trees or debris flying through the wayside just as much as you humanly possible. So bring that inside. Bring your grill inside if you've got a grill outside. Bring all your patio furniture inside if you got that. All your pool toys, bring them inside. Make sure, you know, anything that is loose that could possibly become a projectile, get that stuff off the lawn, y'all. Bring it inside. Okay, so that's number one when we talk about exterior, okay? Again, talked about boarding it up, what hurricane shutters, whatever you got in. But let's talk about inside, okay? The one thing that I didn't do the first year we were here was really prepare for that because we were just excited when you think anything about it. And then the first time a hurricane starts to roll in, what happens is everybody panics and they all run to Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, and the shelves get wiped out. And again, talking to people who are in the know, they are very helpful. So what you definitely want to do is take the time to build up those supplies ahead of time. Okay, so we've got plenty of backup flashlights. I went to Home Depot and bought the little, LED lights that are magnets or can hang from anything. Each one of the kids got their own flashlight with a lanyard on it, and then they got their own flashlight with a kit on it. We've got flashlights in every single room in the house. We made sure we had more than enough batteries. We've got candles and matchbooks and lighters, all the usual stuff there. But the other thing you want to take in consideration here is how are you going to prepare if something comes and knocks your power out? Because most likely that is the event that will occur. And getting a generator before a hurricane comes, y'all, I cannot stress this enough. Once they announce that there's a hurricane en route, all that stuff goes away, and now you're trying to find it on Facebook Marketplace or eBay for 3 times the cost. So don't do that. You can get a very decent generator to run your refrigerator and your internet, which are basically the 2 things you want to keep running while power's out for 4 hours or 4 days. You don't know, but get yourself stocked up on those. You want to make sure you've got gasoline for that generator, unless it's going to be solar powered. So that's a different option you have there. But make sure you've got those supplies. The other thing that you want to make sure that you have on hand is the ability to charge items, right? So let's just say you've got a generator, but it's only got enough to keep the refrigerator going and keep the internet going. Well, you can unplug that and charge your devices. That's one thing. But what I would encourage you to do is get those battery backups. They're usually about this big. They might be pretty thick, and they got enough milliamps in them to charge all of your electronic devices for a few days. Your vehicle is another good option for that as well. You can always crack the garage door as long as you've got a pull handle on it, run a car and charge a phone that way too. So just trying to give you guys some local insights on those types of things, just to make sure that you're ready. The other thing you really want to make sure that you have is water, like I was saying before, because that's one of the first things to go. Toilet paper, paper towels, these are the things that go. Make sure you have backup propane always, okay? Because if you know, you lose power, most people in Florida don't have a gas stove, they have electric stove. It's more common. So now all of a sudden you can't cook anything. Your oven's down and your cooktop's down. So you want to be able to go out and grill. So definitely make sure that you have backup propane. We keep at least 2 extra tanks in the house on top of the one we use all the time. So we're always ready no matter what, because that will basically get us through a couple weeks if needed. And most likely we're not going to see that type of devastation, pray to God, anytime in our lifetime. So that's a great way to do that. Water, have a few cases of backup water that way you have drinking water and something you can wash up with. We would just use our pool as long as it wasn't full of things to do that with. Water should still be in good supply unless it's disrupted too, and you just want to be prepared for that. And then food. You know, if you lose your fridge, you still want to have something you can eat. We keep a 5-gallon bucket with like 25 pounds of rice or something in it. We went out and bought that at Costco. It's stupid cheap. Put the rice in there. We always have canned beans in the house anyways, because the kids love black beans, and a bunch of types of foods we can get there just in case we get locked down. Because let's be honest, y'all, most likely if something does happen, you're not going to be locked down for, you know, 2 weeks. It's probably going to be something like 3 to 5 days at max before somebody can get access to you, but you want to be prepared. And what I want to do is jump over to this list really quick that we're going to share with you guys in this video, so you can kind of look down the list too and get things ready, because there's definitely things in here that I didn't account for. So let me jump over to this list with you right now and show you what we got going on over here. Okay, so here's what the list says. We want non-perishable food items, enough to last 3 days, like we were talking about, water for 3 days, a first aid kit. That's great. I did not mention that. We definitely keep that in the house. I think most people do, but that's a great point. Personal hygiene kits, you're definitely going to want to stay fresh. Batteries, which we talked about. Lights, a radio would be a good thing in case we lose cell towers, which is known to happen. Manual can opener is a good idea. Lighters, books, magazines to keep yourself occupied. Special needs for your pets or for your babies. You know, again, that's really good. Do you have backup formula if that's something you use, and diapers. Coolers and ice pack. And I'm going to give you guys a little tip here, so bear with me because we're about to wrap up, but I've got a tip that you will not regret. And then, you know, what do we need for power outages? We talked about gasoline. Oh, cash, you know, from an ATM. Make sure you have cash on hand in case something happens. Make sure your cell phones are charged ahead of going in. Make sure you've got water and food, like we said. And here's a little tip. So I wanted to give you guys one little tip as we wrap this up. And this is our series. We're starting a new series of what to know when you move to Florida, not just Tampa, what to know when you're moving to Florida. So this is part of that series. So I wanted to share it with you guys. But here's a little tip. Whether you live in Florida, California, Massachusetts, Chicago, doesn't matter, okay? In your ice tray, in your freezer, put a quarter on top of one of those ice cubes. And we learned this trick when we started going away. We travel a lot and we'll leave the house for, you know, a decent period of time. And it's Florida. We are known to have power outages. So we needed to make sure that we were mindful of that. We've been very fortunate here that we haven't had any real long power outage. I think the longest power outage my wife and I have experienced is 3 hours, which has been great. But like I said, what you want to do is take a quarter, put it on top of that ice tray. That way when you leave for your vacation or your time period or whatever, when you come back, if that quarter is at the bottom of that ice tray, you know you most likely have to throw away that food. And while that would be a worst case scenario, at least you don't get sick, because there would be nothing worse than being in Florida during the summer when it's 90 degrees, the humidity's cranked up, the house is super steamy because the AC is not working, and now you've got food poisoning. So definitely don't go that route. I hope today was extremely helpful to you guys. I hope it gave you some idea of how to prepare, and just our experience so far. We've been very fortunate. We hope that path continues when it comes to living here in Tampa, Florida. And again, if you've gotten any value out of this video, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, click that little bell, leave us a comment, let us know, hey, Juan, you just lost your mind, or yep, I totally agree. Whatever it is, when it comes to making that move to the Tampa Bay area, just know that my team here at the True Living Group has got your back. And until next time, go out and live that Tampa life.